The NHI is here. Now, before you panic, there is actually quite a lot to say on this topic. The NHI is unlikely to be rolled out in its current format. It will most likely be stuck in court for years. But with that being said, it can be considered at this point in time that the NHI is nothing more than an electoral ploy to help the ANC get back into power.
The NHI is the destruction of the social order in South Africa, which is why the ANC is pursuing it at all costs. Because we know from the studies that poor people who vote for the ANC love this idea because poor people have no conception of money and have no conception of time, which is why, of course, they are poor. The ANC is using the NHI to increase its chances at electoral success because no doubt its own polls are showing that it is below 45% in this particular election. So therefore, by the time you see this video, the NHI should be signed as a law. But signing something as a law does not make it a law. A whole lot of other things are going to be taking place that prevents us from becoming a law in reality.
The DA came out and a quote said, "It is no exaggeration to say that this announcement has triggered widespread panic amongst the people of South Africa. Within hours of Ramaphosa's announcement, the Democratic Alliance was inundated with queries from panicked citizens." So we know exactly what's going on. Everybody can see it. And they can all see the panic that this announcement causes. Now, we spoke to Sagelika and asked Sagelika, what was your view on this? It's very likely that the bill itself will be stuck in courts for many years to come. But the biggest problem is going to be the messaging that the ANC give around the bill itself. And we've already seen this with Panyeso Lesufi, who in your shithole province, Ramon, of Gauteng, has already gone out to the electorates and said, once the president signs it, from X and X date, you're going to be able to go to any public hospital and get treated, and the government will pay for it. And this, Sagelika says, is one of the biggest challenges that we actually have with NHI. Not whether or not it's going to be implemented, but the promises sold to the people, when the people try to go cash in those promises, they're going to be sorely disappointed. And the social unrest that they may cause, well, it's going to be what we like to call in politics unintended consequences.
We know the ANC is retarded, but not this retarded. They know that there's no funding model. They know that they have no money. They know that this will not pass the constitutional muster. But due to not being able to get 50% this election, they're going to pass it because it makes them look good in the eyes of their voters, who are poor and short-sighted, to be very polite. The catastrophic cascading effect of this bill, of course, is flights, doctors leaving this country, medical aids going under, all sorts of panic in the markets due to this bill being passed. Knowing full well that it cannot materialize in reality, the ANC will do it anyway. So, if you are really panicked about this bill, take a deep breath. And number two, you're scared of the ANC. You're scared of people who can't even manage their own house, who can't generate electricity, who can't keep mentally ill patients alive, who can't do anything correctly, which is our greatest ally, the incompetence. But on the other hand, you shouldn't be scared of people who can't manage anything. You should fight them and beat them. Don't just topple over like a defeated dog. This is the time for you to actually fight for what you believe in for once, instead of waiting for something to happen.
To fund NHI, they would need to increase VAT from 14% to 21.5%. They would need to increase income tax by 31% and an additional 1,500 Rand per month on every working person. Now, you see, the fundamental problem, Ramon, isn't actually of funding NHI or even a workable NHI. It is the effective downplay of the private sector. And one of the government's key strategic partners is Business Unity South Africa. Now, Business Unity South Africa, which usually works with Ramaphosa as representative of the private sector, has actually come out and said that the bill itself is unworkable and unaffordable and not in line with the Constitution. And they intend to take Ramaphosa to court to get the bill deemed unconstitutional. There are key provisions in it that they highlight are problematic. This also goes for the Representation Council, who represents doctors in the country. They say that they have been submitting proposals to amend the NHI bill since it was first proposed way back when. and that the government continues to ignore it. Now, both private sector parties highlight one fundamental issue. The bill restricts the private sector. It does not enhance medical health in South Africa. It doesn't make it bigger, more encompassing. It actually restricts it. So how can you take a system that's already failing, restrict it, and then say this will fix the ills of everyone? Because it's not going to work. The bill is going to land up in court for the next 1,000 years. It is highly unlikely that it can be implemented because it cannot be afforded. We don't have the capital in the country to afford such a bill of lofty heights. So in that instance, it's not worth losing sleep over yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to disrupt the psyche of the average South African, which we've already seen in the panic that it has caused those who need medical help, who need medical assistance, and who are already looking at the shit show that is things like Eskom, PRASA, and so forth, and thinking, this is coming for my medical health. No one wants to see that.
Yeah, but I mean, all this talk about is unaffordable and unconstitutional. None of that matters. None of it fucking matters because people from the DA to corporate South Africa to whatever the case may be, they just don't understand power. The only people who understand power is the ANC. The ANC can ram this through and fuck the consequences because they're not going to suffer the consequences. That's what I really hate about all this discourse around the NHI in particular. The NHI doesn't matter. What matters is people not understanding how power works in this country. You try to curry favor with Cyril, you give him billions of rands worth of shares over time, you give him expensive whiskey, you make him a farm owner, you make him the biggest, whatever, Ankole cattle owner in South Africa. You bribe him for 30 years, and guess what he's going to do? He's still going to fuck you. Why? Because he's got power. Why? Because you thought you could negotiate with him. It doesn't work to negotiate with communists/terrorists. It always ends up the same way. You get fucked all the time. Is Corporate SA going to wake up? Are people who are affiliated to Corporate SA going to wake up? They, the ANC, don't care about you. They want you dead. They want your businesses dead. They want to, put you in the sea. Why? Because they can. Because they have power. And if you don't oppose them with power, they're going to run roughshod all over you. Whether it is the NHI, whether it is BE quotas, whether it is whatever they put in place. If you don't understand power, you can never beat the ANC. Ever.